Going to begin the evening with a beautiful poet who has come from out of town to share her poetry with us. Lisa is a wonderful person, very present and supportive on social media. The more I get to know her, the more I love her and her work. So I'll read her bio. Lisa Reynolds is a member of the Ontario Poetry Society, Royal City Literary Arts Society, and the League of Canadian Poets. She is the recipient of the Ontario Poetry Society's 2023 Ted Plantos Memorial Award. Yay, Lisa. Lisa holds degrees from York University. She's published internationally in anthologies, literary journals, and magazines with translations in Farsi, Italian, Mandarin, and Spanish. So wonderful. Her chapbook, Pearls of Rain, was released in December 2023 by Beret Days Press. And do you have some chapbooks with you? Yay. Lisa advocates for social justice through her writing, and her poetry has been featured in art poetry exhibits in Canada and the USA. She lives east of Toronto. Do you need a chair or anything?
I do. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa, coming from Ajax, like Brenda said, 2 hours away. Sorry, my voice is a little rusty, but no, actually, I just downed some. Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm going to be sharing with you some poetry today from my new chapbook collection, hot off the press, like literally just a couple hours ago. And it's called Pearls of Rain. It's a confessional narrative written in poetic form. All the poems in the book are previously published in Australia, Canada, the Philippines, the UK, and the US. A couple of the poems have previously been translated. I think I only mentioned one at the back, and that belonged to Monsieur, a good friend, so I put it in the back of the book. So I think that's a bit. I just want to say thanks so much, Brenda, for the invitation, and I really appreciate your support. And to be here with Lisa, who's like, oh my gosh, my idol over there, and Patty and Harpin and John. It's wonderful to be able to share in this space. And just before I start, because I know my time is limited, I just want to say today on the Canadian League of Poets, they had a little quote, and it was, "Poetry matters. It teaches us to analyze, empathize, communicate in a world that doesn't stop." And I thought that was so on point to what we're doing here today. And so, like I indicated, this is a confessional narrative. So all the poems are true. And some of them are about love, some about trauma, and some about regret. And they're also at different lengths. So I incorporated different styles just so it's throughout. So there are some haiku, which is, shorter, micro poetry, which is, again, shorter. And some of my standard shorts, so short, you're getting today. And I'll be repeating the haiku and the poems that don't have a title twice for clarity and for impact. So I'm just going to start. The first poem is a haiku, and I wrote it in response to a silenced contest, and it was one of their award-winning ones, but it really hits home for me, so I thought I'd start off with that one. Can't tell anyone about the voices inside. They control my tongue. Can't tell anyone about the voices inside. They control my tongue. So when I was growing up, we didn't talk about anything in terms of personal business. So being here and sharing this next poem is a biggie for me. I actually wrote it after my mother passed away, and you'll see when I read it the reason why. There are things we don't talk about. 1, the gun he hid under the dresser in the bedroom he shared with Mum. 2, how he raised it to his temple while standing in the bathtub. 3, how we clung to each other on an orange tweed couch, listening for the shot that didn't come. 4, how she told us to tell him we were happy he wasn't dead. 5, how we waited for the next time. She never sung to console, but took us to hilltops to scream. She never sung to console, but took us to hilltops to scream. Blue blossoms, her eyes, forget-me-nots. Blue blossoms, her eyes, forget-me-nots. Last words. Before she left, he told her he couldn't forget what she'd done. She didn't question his logic, just stared at the tube attached to his nose and listened to his labored breath until morphine drips turned high-pitched beeps flat. I think about you, things we did and didn't do to keep you alive. I think about you, things we did and didn't do to keep you alive. Bucket list, overflowing with pipe dreams. Bucket list, overflowing with pipe dreams. This next poem was published last year by the League of Canadian Poets. It was actually requested by Brian Burns that I read it today, so here it is. Fawn. It is difficult to want but not have. Then she appears, left by her mother in my garden sanctuary, and a familiar ache rises to nurture what is not mine. How blessed and unblessed am I to hover like a parent in a doorway. So, I'm a person with a disability. I have pretty serious illness, and it goes up and down, and so I just, do my best. And so this next poem is called Shapeshifter, and it was published in 2022 in an anthology called Movement, Body in Motion. And I was a little bit hesitant to submit, but the editor I knew well, and he was so kind. His name was Stephen Lester Carr from Sweetie Cat Press, and unfortunately he passed away. So I wanted to include this poem for him. Shapeshifter. My body doesn't always move the way it should. It staggers, falls, before rising on tiptoes to reach staircase chandelier, swings from it until wings break through backbones, transforming dead weight to weightless wonder. God knows how this miracle nourishes me, a shapeshifter, soaring. This next poem is called How to Eat Crow, and it was completed as part of an exercise I was doing. I read this really good resource called the Practicing Poet, I believe it's called, by Diana Lockwood. I hope I'm saying it right, 'cause I wrote it down, but now I'm forgetting. Oh my gosh. But anyways, it's such a great thing. Did I? Yeah, okay, good, thanks. And it was so good. And so I'm working on my metaphors, and there was a poem in there by Frank X. Walker called How to Eat, How to Swallow an Elephant. That's right, How to Swallow an Elephant. So my poem, How to Eat Crow, was just an off-take, totally different. And it deals with the fact that over the years I've had to take an incredible amount of medication to keep going. And so this is my poem. How to Eat Crow. Write a poem about pain med addiction. Admit assertion, it will never happen to me. Empty vanity of prescription bottles. Nickname pills, blues, fast acting, pinks, slow release. Swallow superiority with pungent cheese. Let the taste settle. So this next poem is called Wanting More. I read this poem the first time, and actually Lisa was present too, down at High Park. Remember that? Yeah. I was in a bad way, actually, and I was using my walker, and I made it up to the podium. Well, it was outside, but it was kind of like a podium. And so I read this very intimate poem. So here we go. Wanting more. Sometimes it begins with a look. Gentle eyes appeal to my softer side, the one I want to share, but seldom do. I'm a complex Katie, living in the body of a delicate daisy. There's no shame in it. But when he says he wants me, I don't think he means me as a whole. Just parts, breasts, legs, thighs, and what lies in between. It's a defense tactic, he explains, every time I turn him away. It scares me how kind he is, but I've never told him so. Tell me you love me, not out of habit or guilt, with a rawness that makes me believe. Tell me you love me, not out of habit or guilt, with a rawness that makes me believe. This next poem is another rather intimate poem. I wrote it in response to, for a love anthology. And the title of the poem is This Love? There are times when my eyes flutter open and I find him staring. It freaked me at first, being caught, skin flushed, mind sailing him above, smile building. I want to watch you enjoy, he'd say. And I'd look away, thoughts scrambling. Is this love? I want to believe, but fear to know. Knowing changes everything. This poem is for my ex-husband. It's called Invisible Barrier. In bed, we share space like strangers on transit. Not touching, not speaking, just present. Time ticks while we lie here. You now asleep, me listening to you breathe. Come morning, the sun will brighten dark rooms. The smell of coffee will fill cool air. But this barrier between us will remain. Who will break through first and journey alone? Laundry days, no longer his and hers. Laundry days, no longer his and hers. This poem has been published a couple times, but one of the main ones was through Valiant Scribe, and I'm very grateful for their support. This was a kind of a difficult poem. It's called When It Happens. When it happens, I no longer fight it. I let it do what it needs to. The cleverness I possessed is gone, replaced by a what will be mentality. He said it would be like this, all heartache would come at once, then leave me in a sedated state where tears are merely droplets that flow. Healing has begun. Acceptance, too. Yes, acceptance. An admission that changes everything, but nothing. My solo, a dance, twirling towards tomorrow. I've got 2 more poems. And then I'm gonna end. Oh, I have 5. Oh, I can go right to the end then. Okay. The next one is a haiku. I wrote this kind of like a little chapbook with my girlfriend, and this was one of the poems from in there. Long days, daring to be happy, cold shore. Long days, daring to be happy, cold shore. This one was published a couple times too. It's, anyways, here we go. You and me, caught in a circle of hellos. We avoid each other's eyes, side, hug, and pretend we were never more than we are now. And yet, in that brief moment when you drew me in, I heard your breath hitch the way it used to before we kissed. Beauty in believing. There is beauty in believing, beyond this grip of a knowing, that somewhere you have found that spark, the one you never spoke of, the one I never questioned in fear of not being enough. Some might ask, how does love not fade? My answer, by believing it was more than it ever was. And my final poem is titled Self-Love. I call it to me, like a lake pleads for waves to drench its desert shores. And it comes, not in pale drifts, but pearls of rain, draping me with wet light until I am smiling. Thank you so very much, everyone. Ten.
That was absolutely beautiful, Lisa. Thank you so much. I feel like you shared your soul with us. So, wow. Incredibly special reading. I'm just so moved.